Hey there, my name is Rosie Bogus, and in this video I'm going to be discussing an introduction and overview of the English alphabet lesson series that I'm going to be posting to this channel. Please know that this is going to be a rather long video, but there's a lot to go into. I'm going to be explaining a little bit of my side of all of this, and then after that I'll be providing you some information about how those lessons coming next are going to be formatted so that you can anticipate what they're going to look like. So let's get started. I've tried to record this video at least 3 or 4 times, and I am not going to keep on recording it. So you're going to hear a lot of ums. You're going to hear a lot of moments where I'm just pausing for a second, because video editing is something that I have not spent a lot of time doing, I must admit. So please forgive me as I go through this video. This is probably going to be the only video that's going to be not edited because it's just a whole bunch of information. And it's very informal and lots of just me explaining stuff. So please expect that my actual lessons are going to be crisp and refined, to be my best work, but there's just so many parts to it that I am not going to go back and try and re-edit all of this. So just fair warning, I wanted to start with that. But here we go. To start off, this is a disclaimer. With a disclaimer such as this, it's very long. I am not going to read it because I trust that you could probably pause this video and read it yourself. Pretty much in summary, it's discussing that the English language is very difficult. There are a zillion different ways of approaching the English language. So many different learning styles and different types of methods and different curriculums, and that it needs to be appropriate for whomever's using it, and to just know that all of this takes into account to when you're using everything and anything that has to do with this content. So please, for you, as whether you're a teacher, a parent, a supervisor, or the learner themselves, just please know that there are limitations to everything that's going on here. The information provided here is to the best of my ability. I'm not trying to dish out some misinformation. That is not the goal here. The goal here is to help learn the sounds of the alphabet. And that's what made me want to make this video in the first place. So just know that there are limitations that come with all of it. Now I am going to go into a little bit about my viewpoint on how we're traditionally taught about the English language and learning our sounds. So let's take a look here. How many of you does this seem like a very familiar thing to have seen, whether it was in a classroom as a teacher, like you put this up yourself, or your child used this if you're the parent, or maybe you, the parent, you maybe went into a classroom for parent-teacher conferences and you saw this. This is a very common resource that we see in classrooms. Very common. And this particular picture that I put on here is actually from Lakeshore. And Lakeshore is a very common company that's used by many districts and teachers alike. Excuse me. And there's nothing wrong with them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Lakeshore. But this is where the very first thing I have some concerns about, okay? We're used to learning our alphabet. We're used to learning the letters, the sounds, what they look like, how to write them, and it all sort of happens between kindergarten and 2nd grade that we work on this type of skill, right? And it's not uncommon, and it's not wrong, but there are limitations and areas in which there are concerns. And for me, being one of a teacher and a learner, I personally was in special ed, but I also taught special ed, so I can see why this can be challenging. As a teacher, it can be challenging, and as the learner, it can be challenging. Why? What could possibly be wrong with this chart when we're learning how our alphabet, learning the letters, learning to write them, and learning to read and speak them? Why could this possibly be an issue? Take a look at the letter X. Nothing seems wrong with it, right? The letter is written correctly, it's clear, and then there's a picture that goes with it, right? Let's take a look a little bit closer at it. All right, so we have X, and then we have an X-ray, right? Same thing. It's a picture, and then the letter. Great, fantastic. What could possibly be the issue here? Let's look at this from a teacher standpoint. What is it we are trying to teach? Are we trying to teach many skills or one skill? And if we're teaching many skills, what skills are our priority? As the learner, what is it that my teacher is trying to tell me? As the parent, what is it that my child's being taught at school to take home and learn at home, right? How can we continue the learning from school to home? Let's take another step into it. If I'm a teacher teaching this, I would probably say, this is the letter X. X, this is the picture X-ray. Everyone say X-ray. Everyone say the letter name X. X. It seems rather harmless. But the question again is, what am I assessing? Am I assessing that my students know the name of the letter? Are they trying to match the letter with a picture? So like, am I teaching this because I want them to know that X goes with X-ray? Like, is that the point of this? Is it so they know how to write the word X-ray or write the letter X? What is it that I'm trying to teach and why? And then as the learner, okay, I can say X. X goes with X-ray. And they come home, and parents, you hear, hey, I learned X. It's for X-ray. Now what? Right? Now what do we do with that information? How do we apply this to other concepts? How do we apply this to reading, to writing, and that's kind of where part of that concern kind of comes into. The other part of the concern is we're not focused at all about the sound that the letter X makes. If you noticed, X-ray starts with the letter X, and as a learner, that's what I can see. X-ray starts with X, but I don't know what sound X makes. Now, from an adult standpoint, you can say, well, X says X a lot of the time, right? Like in the word exit, right? But not all the time does it say X, right? So it's not helpful when we're trying to apply that to reading or to speaking, right? Because we don't always say X for X-ray. That argument has some value. Equally, you could say that, other letters don't always or reliably say that sound. Now, in general, right? Yes, when you're first starting out, it could be helpful. Okay, well, let's keep going. Usually after you're taught the letter, we're sitting in a whole group and we're taught this letter and how to draw it and all of this fun part, then we're off to go do an activity. This is an example of an activity that I've seen several times in classrooms. I've even used this activity. Maybe you've seen this at home for some of those parents. Maybe you've seen this at home. Excuse me. But let's look again. What are we assessing? What are we actually learning from this? In this particular activity, we see that it's the letter S. We see that there's capital S's and lowercase s's. We see 3 different pictures that seem to start with the letter S. I don't know how to spell any of those words, maybe, right? And so I'm not being taught how to spell these words. I'm being, pretty much I'm associating these objects to this letter, right? So am I assessing that a learner can match these 3 objects, an animal, or 2 objects and an animal, to this letter? Is that the point of this? Is the point of it to be able to trace uppercase and lowercase letters? Is it to be able to identify the difference between an uppercase and a lowercase? Is it to assess the ability to write the letter? All of those could possibly be assessed, possibly. Would I personally rely on those assessments? Probably not. But is it a fun activity? Yes. Is it cute? Yes. Is it a good coloring activity? Yes. Is it academic? Absolutely. But again, we need to be purposeful as to how we're teaching this. And this is not focused, again, on any kinds of sounds. So all of this to say that we're missing the sounds to these letters. Now, some teachers might say, okay, can someone show us the picture saw? Let's sound out the word saw. And then we run into a problem, right? Saw. We just learned the letter S. We definitely haven't learned the AW sound. So, or for sock, maybe we learned the letter S sound and the short O sound, but we have no idea about the C and K. And what about the seal? We know a long E sound, maybe, if we gotten to that point, maybe, but we definitely hadn't learned about E and A make an E sound together, so we're already running into issues about that. Well, let's turn our attention to another little nugget of an issue. The next thing that I see a lot, and it wasn't until after I had classes to do with teaching reading that I noticed this even more and more. So when we're saying letter sounds or sets of letters and their sound, a lot of the time people add the sound that we use when we're confused. What sound is that? So a lot of the times I would hear la, pa, ta, and that, nope, please no, please no. We do not need to add the sound at the end of any letter sound. The only time we should ever be using is unless it's the actual sound we're using. It should not be in addition to another sound, okay? So it's not ta, it's t. Unless you are Mater from Cars, there is really zero reason why should be added into a sound. And oftentimes, teachers alike and parents don't realize that that's what's being added in there. And it's simply because we're not taught that. Like, right? We're not specifically taught, hey, be very careful not to add the sound. I can say with the curriculum I'm going to talk about, UFLI, they specifically do tell whoever is teaching that lesson to make sure not to add the sound, which is beautiful and perfect. We don't want that. Why don't we want that? Why don't we want the sound? This is a culminating reason. All of these factors that I just spoke about, all of this impacts the results of assessments that specifically focus on letter and sets of letter sounds. Okay, there's a lot of information, a lot of science behind it. I could speak a little bit more about that, but for this particular case as to why I'm making this video series is because what happens is I have so many learners who are failing assessments simply because they either don't know what the letter sound makes, or sets of letters make a certain sound, or they add the to it, or they can't recall that sound or pronounce the sound. There are so many reasons, but really what it concludes to is that I have so many students and learners who are failing because the foundation of learning is not happening. And it's not to the teacher's fault, it's not to the resources fault, it's simply because of the way that we're not separating and distinguishing when we're teaching and learning about just the sounds, using our ears and hearing this. And that's actually why these videos that I am going to be making are not found on YouTube. Okay, I mean, we use Jack Hartman. We use other videos, other learning videos from YouTube, but majority of them do not specifically focus on sounds. And some of them that do, they are incorrect. And I have a huge pet peeve about the letter R. And when you go to that video, when it goes to the R sound, just the letter R and the letter R sound, it drives me bonkers because of how many different videos I have seen or had tried to look for to use for my students to hear the sound for the letter R, and it's wrong. So that's what is going to make the difference between my videos and any other videos. In addition to that, what's going to be different is that I'm going to be using sounds, right? I'm going to take away majority of the visuals. It's going to be very simplistic. A lot of it's going to be things to hear, and that's what I was speaking about in the beginning of my video, is that I'm going to be editing those lesson videos, and that's because it has to be exactly what I want it to be, so that you, as the parent, as the teacher, as the specialist, as the learner, can hear the sounds and have them articulate and clear for you. Also, my videos are going to allow you to have some speaking practice. And with that speaking practice, you are going to have only a select few of visuals to go with it. Now, maybe in later videos, if I get enough views or even requests, I might make some videos that are just activities or games or quizzes that can be used that are a little bit more visual. But for the case of the coming videos, they're not going to have very much visuals, but they're going to be very simplistic, so that we're assessing specifically the sounds. And like I said, the whole purpose of this is because we're missing that. We're having so many learners not be able to be assessed appropriately of those sounds and efficiently and effectively use what they are learning to then be able to read and write. And now we get into the part of like, wait, what? Why am I making this argument? Why am I bringing this up? My child, maybe your students don't have an issue with the sounds and the letters and tracing them, coloring them, finding them, writing them, all of this other stuff. Maybe you have no challenges with that. Maybe you do. But like, why? Why does this matter? Why do we care about this, right? Especially when we only got 26 letters in the alphabet. There's only 26 of them, right? It's not a big deal. So we see them all the time. 26 letters. Not bad, right? That number's not big. But let me tell you this. Those 26 letters make 44 different sounds. But then it gets worse, right? We take those 26 letters and we can jumble them into different combinations. So they're more than one letter that makes that one sound, right? We take those letters, we jumble them up with other letters, and we still get a different sound, right? There are 155 different combinations. Yeah, if your face looked like this, you're not alone. 155 different combinations. And then get this. Learners are supposed to know this by 4th grade, right? By the time they're age 11 and 12 years old, they should, I say this loosely, should know how to write, read, and pronounce all of those combinations. That is nutso. Okay? That is crazy. Right? And if your child is in second grade or in third grade and they only know, the very basic letters of the alphabet, you already feel like you're behind, right? It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. You're not alone. And for those teachers out there who are doing the best they can to teach their students the best they can, you're not alone. Parents, you're not alone either. Learners, you're definitely not alone, okay? You will figure it out, you'll catch up, you'll do the best that you can, and that's what matters. So I want you to just take a second to just soak it in, chill out, because it's going to be all right. We're gonna work through this. And this is, like I said, it's not a fix-all everything. Is it a problem? Yes. Am I going to try and give some of my wisdom? Absolutely. But before I provide some wisdom, I'm going to give you a minute to just take a few deep breaths. All right? I'm going to let this run 2 or 3 times to just let you have a second to get your bearings back. If you need more time, go ahead and rewind and try again, but I'm going to move on. Let's take a look at the lesson overview. In the lessons I'm going to be providing, they're going to be using the scope and sequence provided by UFLI, K-2. UFLI is a free to access curriculum that can be found online. All their resources are posted there. If you so decide to use their resources, if you use the Toolbox, there is full lessons provided by them that have Google Slides, they have activities, they have the manual that goes with it for each lesson. If you peek at the speaker notes, they put notes in there for you as well on how to teach it, all of that stuff, so that's great. The lessons that I'm going to be doing should all be used as like supplementary practicing for listening and for speaking. That's really going to be the focus, listening and speaking. You do not have to use all the lesson videos in conjunction with UFLI. Like, you do not have to drop everything and only use UFLI. You can use it with other curriculums like Pearson, McGraw-Hill, Envisions. There are Saxon Phonics, Wilson. Like, there are a gajillion different types of curriculums out there that are used by districts, schools. Even if you're homeschooling, like, there are so many different curriculums. But if you want something that that I would recommend, it would be UFLI, because it is free, because you can access it. You do not have to pay anything for it. You don't have to have some kind of subscription, none of that junk. You can use that. But again, you can use it with other curriculums. Please know that this is not a paid sponsorship. This is not me trying to sell UFLI. This is me not trying to tell you that all the other curriculums suck or anything like that. This is just simply a curriculum that I really appreciated and that I was introduced to and really liked, and it was really helpful. So that's the only reason why I wanted to mention it. If you are interested in using UFLI, I'm going to provide the links into the video description below, so take a look at those. I will provide the scope and sequence in there as well, along with the toolbox and then the resource hub. Okay, so you're going to find 3, 4, 4 different links. If you are also interested in knowing like what in the world UFLI is, what does it stand for, what is their focus, all that junk, there's going to be a link for that as well.